The much anticipated Vader 5S, Flydigi's first officially licensed Xbox gaming controller, what I would call the little brother to their most popular controller line, the Vader 5 Pro, with stripped down features but direct compatibility with Microsoft's Xbox consoles. Did Flydigi cook? Is it worth the price? What type of gamer is it for? And why is it wired only? We'll get into all of that and more. This is Ben, and without further ado, let's review. Quick disclaimer, this unit was sent to me by Flydigi for the purposes of testing and review, but this video is all of my own thoughts and opinions, with no input from Flydigi other than providing me with official marketing information. This is the box, and it's pretty standard as far as packaging goes for most controllers. Here's Gamesir's G7SE box for reference, which I would consider the main competition for the Vader 5S. You've got a nice picture of the controller on the front with the usual branding logos, certifications, connectivity, and codes on the sides, and some technical info about the controller on the back. Inside, you get the plastic casing that holds the controller. We'll come back to this in a bit. The usual slip that showcases the latest products in Flydigi's lineup. A multi-language instructions manual. A 1-month free trial for Game Pass Ultimate, the one I got is a blank. And a 3-meter long braided USB-A to USB-C cable. It's a good enough cable, but a little thin, and the blue accent should have been gold to match the aesthetics of the controller. And back to the main event. We'll do a quick sound test. As I said in the intro of the video, the Vader 5S is Flydigi's first Microsoft licensed Xbox controller and is basically a stripped down version of their Vader 5 Pro. It's natively compatible on the Xbox One and Xbox Series consoles and Windows PCs. It's wired only, which is probably pretty disappointing to most of you, but from what I've heard, it's a requirement from Microsoft that every third-party brand's first licensed controller must be wired only. I don't know why that is, you'll have to take it up with Microsoft if you want more answers. It's got an MSRP of $60 USD, and I'll talk more about what I think of this price in a bit. The controller weighs in at about 260 grams. For comparison, and because I think that it's the closest competitor, like I said earlier, the Gamesir G7SE weighs in at 216 grams. The ABXY buttons are micro switch, while all of the other buttons are tactile and metal dome switches. You've got all of the required Xbox buttons, including the logo, which is the home and power button, the view and menu, and the share button. On the underside is the 3.5mm headset port, and beside it is a microphone mute button and a function button. On the back are two remappable buttons, M1 and M2, and toggle switches for the two mode triggers on top, which you can switch between their Hall Effect analog mode and their micro switch digital mode. Also on top are the usual shoulder bumpers, the USB-C input, and two extra remappable shoulder buttons called LM and RM. Back to the front are another two extra remappable buttons called C and Z, which are a staple of the Vader lineup. And finally, the big selling point of this controller is their patented Hall Effect Force Flex joysticks, with a uniquely developed lever centering design, internal outer range restriction, and these gold or bronze colored rings that can adjust the tension of the sticks on the fly. According to the tech specs, the minimum tension is about 40 grams of force and the maximum is 100 grams of force. These 5S modules have a maximum polling rate of 500 Hz. Yep, that's right, 500 Hz. And according to a Flydigi employee, the latency of the sticks are about 5 milliseconds and the buttons 4 milliseconds. As of the recording of this video though, the numbers haven't been confirmed on Gamepadla, but when they are, I'll post them in the comments. As far as how it looks and how it feels, I have no real complaints. The plastic shell feels pretty decent quality, not quite as premium as the Vader 5 Pro of course, but about equal to the Vader 4 Pro. It doesn't have rubberized rear grips, instead it has this sort of soft feeling textured grip that wraps around to the front of the handles. It's hard to explain exactly what it's like, since it's not similar to the grips of other controllers I have. It's almost like 800 or 1000 grit sandpaper in hand feel. I personally like how it feels, but I can definitely see people generally not liking it, since it's a pretty subtle texture that doesn't exactly offer the most grippy feel. Ergonomically, the shape is almost identical to the Series X controller, and is exactly identical to the Vader 5 Pro. I like the shape, it's comfortable in my hands, but like I said in my Vader 5 Pro review, I prefer the shape of the triggers on the Vader 4 Pro better than the newer, narrower triggers of these new models. The buttons, triggers, and sticks feel the same as on the Vader 5 Pro. These microswitch triggers feel and sound so satisfying, and the smoothness of the sticks are second to none. But there are two surprising little changes that are very good, and I don't understand why the 5 Pro didn't have these, but the 5S does. The first thing is that the D-pad has a center pivot. You can see that if I press down on the middle of the pad, I can't actuate all of the buttons at once. In contrast, you can see that my 5 Pro doesn't have that pivot and I can press down on all of the buttons. This is one of the common complaints that people had with the previous generation D-pad on the Vader 4 and Apex 4. They were good, but no center pivot meant that doing quick combos for things like fighting games made it easy to accidentally register the wrong directions, depending on how you operated the D-pad with your thumb. They added a center pivot to the Apex 5 and now the Vader 5S, but not the Vader 5 Pro. What and why? The second thing, and the bigger thing in my opinion, is that the tension rings finally have a ratcheting mechanism of some sort. You probably heard it during the sound test, and if you didn't, go back and listen again. This means that now, instead of having a totally smooth turning ring, you now have an audible and physical click for each micro position the ring is on. A small tangent for those that are maybe new to Flydigi and are confused on why this is a big deal. Basically, these tension rings are an amazing addition to the sticks, and was introduced in the Vader 4 Pro that released over a year ago. They allow you to adjust the physical tension of the joysticks to whatever feels most comfortable for you at any time, and however many times you like. For example, I like having a looser tension on my left stick. It's easier on the thumb, especially for longer gaming sessions. For the right stick, I like it to be taller. It gives me a little more precision for aiming, but it also makes the natural tension lower. With the tension adjustment, I can tighten the tension and then give it even more tension, which gives me more control and stability for aiming. I know that for some this isn't a big deal, and you might even call it a gimmick, but this is just another layer of personal customization that's consumer friendly and even provides potential accessibility for people that may have certain physical disabilities. Back to the main point, the biggest criticism that the Vader 4 Pro had with the tension rings was that they had a tendency to get loose over time, some faster and worse than others. Personally, I didn't have any problems with my Vader 4 Pro or even my Vader 5 Pro, but I guess I got lucky, and some units had better ring tightness than others. People have been suggesting adding a ratchet mechanism from the beginning, and expected that the Vader 5 Pro would have it. It didn't, but now the Vader 5S does. Why does the S have it but not the Pro? No idea. My best guess is that whoever was in charge of testing these for Microsoft had the same complaint and told Flydigi to change it or no license. Pretty compelling argument. As far as the other physical aspects of the 5S, I have no complaints. The controller is well built, and I mostly like how it looks. I'm a fan of the black with gold accents, but why have the grey face buttons? It doesn't match any other part of the controller's aesthetics. Gold face buttons would have been too much, but why not a glossy black instead? It would fit the look a lot better, and then if they made the D-pad the same glossy black, it would balance it out. Also, why do all black Xbox controllers have the mostly white Xbox home button? This has to be some sort of licensing restriction, right? Because there's no way this looks better than if they used the mostly black home button instead, like with this beta model that I modded. Which one looks better to you? Let me know in the comments. I was actually a beta tester for the Vader 5S, so I've used a few different versions of it since October, and performance has been good for all of the units I've had. The buttons and sticks feel decently snappy and responsive, and I haven't really felt too much of a difference in overall latency between this and my Vader 5 Pro. If Flydigi's latency claims are true, those are good, competitive numbers, and would make the 5S sticks 3 times faster than the Vader 4 Pro sticks. I still play better on my Vader 5 Pro, and the better latency definitely has an impact on that, as well as some software things that I'll get into in the next bit. One thing I don't understand, why only 500Hz polling rate? I know that on Xbox the polling rate is locked to 250Hz, which is whatever, but why lock this controller to only 500Hz on PC? Clearly, based on the specs and the marketing, this controller is advertised more for the competitive crowd, and 1000Hz polling is pretty much standard on all controllers nowadays, even the most budget-friendly ones. I'm a big time proponent that polling rate does not equal latency, and the latency of the 5S is actually pretty good for only being 500Hz. But most people don't understand this, especially in the competitive crowd, and having it not be 1000Hz on PC means that most will automatically not even think twice about passing on it just for that alone. This is a miss in my opinion, especially from a marketing point of view, even if the actual latency numbers are pretty decent. Pretty much all of us beta testers have been telling Flydigi to make the controller pull at 1000Hz on PC since the beginning, and we were totally ignored. How much money does Flydigi save by taking away an extra 500Hz? We had a prominent Halo Pro beta testing with us who straight up said he wasn't going to use it if it didn't have 1000Hz, and none of the other pros would even consider getting it without 1000Hz. All in all, in games, namely COD and Halo, it plays pretty well, and comes with all of the features that I really need in a controller, but Flydigi made some baffling decisions on some aspects that makes me shake my head. The Vader 5S uses a new app, separate from all of the other Flydigi controllers, called Flydigi Space Station for Xbox. Clever name, I know. The 5S will not work through Space Station 3 or 4. It's downloaded through the Microsoft Store on PC or your Xbox console. You'll be greeted with this screen when you start the app but haven't connected your 5S. The main screen is nice and clean with a display of the controller on the right, 4 different profile options that you can set and toggle between, and a gear icon on the bottom left that will take you to the general settings page. If you have the extra buttons mapped on your controller for whatever profile you're on, it will show you the mappings on the controller graphic. In the general settings you have 4 different options. The first is changing the app language between Chinese and English. I'm going to assume that the second language choice is determined by what part of the world you're from, and it isn't just default English for everyone. I don't actually know though, so if you have this controller and you're from a non-English speaking country, tell me in the comments if your native language is included for the app. The second is calibration through the software. It'll tell you to rotate your sticks and press the triggers down. Make sure your triggers are in analog mode and not microswitch. And I always recommend that people calibrate the controllers when they get them new. You can also calibrate the controller manually if you don't want to use the software app. And generally, manual calibration works better than software calibration as well. Check out my manual calibration video on the Vader 5 Pro. The process is the same with this controller and all other Flydigi controllers as well. The third option is for firmware updates. You'll be notified here if there's a pending update for your controller or the app. The last is for viewing the controller manual. It's the exact same manual that physically comes in your package and has shortcuts that you can use to toggle through some settings on the controller itself. Back to the main page, click on any of these profile boxes to switch to, modify, rename, or restore to its default settings. Going to the Modify tab will get you to the meat and potatoes options. The Buttons tab is first, and from here you can map and remap the inputs on the controller. Unfortunately, you can't remap to any keyboard functions, even on the PC app. It's strictly mapping to existing default inputs only. The second tab is for your stick options. Here you can set the stick response curves, the inner and outer dead zones, switch between circle or square mode for the sticks. Choosing one of these options changes the circularity of both left and right sticks. At this point, there's no way to have one of the sticks be circle and the other square. Toggle between 250Hz or 500Hz polling rate, and turn on or off the stick rebounce algorithm. Tab 3 is for adjusting the travel or inner and outer dead zones of the triggers. Tab 4 is for the grip and trigger vibration settings, and the last tab is lighting effects for the LED bar. All in all, a simple and effective app, and it looks good as well, I'd say, but there are options that should have been added, at least for the PC version of the app. I don't see why they couldn't have all of the stick processing available to toggle in the app. It's the exact same modules as what's on the 5 Pro, and yet the sticks are locked to 10 or 11-bit resolution, and they have rebounce available to toggle on or off, but not debounce and automatic calibration, which are on by default by the way. I personally would never have these settings on. I want the pure performance of the sticks without any algorithms that are just there to look good on gamepad testers, but don't actually have any benefits in the games I play. And if anything, these algorithms can actually add latency, which makes the performance worse. Another miss is not having the ability to set keyboard functions, at least for the remappable buttons. I know they can't have the option on Xbox, but they could have totally enabled it for PC. This limits the total usefulness of the extra inputs. GameSir is a much smaller company with less resources, and yet they were able to make a robust software that had the required options and restrictions on the Xbox side, while not gimping the PC side of the app at all, minus macros and turbos of course. If GameSir was able to do that, there's no reason why Flydigi couldn't do it also. Going over my overall thoughts on the Vader 5S, the controller looks and feels really good. I think that Flydigi does a really good job when it comes to the aesthetics of their products, at least with their Vader line. I like that it has a clean, almost professional look to it, without so much of the gamer vibes of too many graphics or too many color combinations. Ergonomically, it feels great in my hands, and I have no issues with comfort. I grew up on Xbox, and I have pretty big hands, so the Xbox controller shape has always felt better than the PlayStation shape. The sticks physically feel great, just as good as on the 5 Pro and the 4 Pro. All of the buttons feel good and snappy, especially the clicky triggers, and the controller is just generally well built. All of the pieces fit together with good tolerances, nothing rattles when giving it a bit of a shake, and there's no flexing or creaking. The amount of extra features the controller has is great, and is just enough for my needs. 6 extra remappable inputs means that I can map all of the face buttons so I don't ever need to take my aiming thumb off of the stick, and I still have 2 more inputs that I can map to other things. The micro switch triggers are excellent, super short actuation, and they have this almost bouncy feedback that makes them feel really easy to spam press. The tension adjustment rings are great, and with the added ratchet mechanism, they're better than the ones on the Vader 5 Pro and the Apex 5. The MSRP is $60 USD, and that's a fair enough price. It's not a steal of a deal, but with 6 extra buttons, proper micro-switch trigger stops, and the Hall effect sticks with adjustable tension, I think it mostly justifies being $15 more expensive than the G7 SE, and purely for its Xbox use, it even beats out the higher priced G7 Pro in features, outside of the G7 Pro having the better performing TMR sticks. Of course, the G7 Pro offers a lot more on the PC side of its use case, as well as in its software, which is where the Vader 5S is lacking. On a more critical note, I have issues with Flydigi limiting the software. I understand that there are limitations and restrictions they have to follow because of the licensing, but there's no reason for the PC side of the software to be limited the same way. Like I said earlier, GameSir is able to do it with their Nexus software, which means that nothing is stopping Flydigi from doing the same thing. Related to the software, and I guess the firmware as well, are the stick algorithms that can't be turned off. The automatic calibration and the debounce, which don't provide any performance benefits, and are just there to make the controller look better on tests. If anything, having these always on can add latency to the sticks and make them less responsive. Staying on the sticks, having only 500Hz polling on PC makes absolutely no sense. Almost all controllers being released now, regardless of the price, have 1000Hz. What benefit does Flydigi get from limiting the polling rate on a controller that they're heavily marketing for competitive gaming? Maybe someone who's more knowledgeable can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that Flydigi is saving much money by leaving out these software and firmware features. And I also don't think that this reflects on a lower price tag for the controller either. The Vader 5S is so close to being an excellent controller, and really, for purely Xbox gaming, it's pretty close, as long as you don't mind wired only. If you're a competitive gamer who only plays on Xbox, looking for a pro level controller, it doesn't get better than this, at least for now. The problem is, it seems like Flydigi gimped the PC side of this controller's ability just to segment it more from the Vader 5 Pro, when they didn't need to at all. For $20 more, the Vader 5 Pro has better build material quality, rubber rear grips, 2 removable paddles, wireless compatibility through 2.4 GHz and Bluetooth, and compatibility on Android, iOS, and Nintendo Switch. Before even adding on software features, everything I've just listed more than justifies the price difference in my opinion. If you're more like me, and you're looking for one controller that you can use between Xbox and PC for competitive focused gaming, I can't recommend this controller. Your best option would be the G7 Pro, even though it's $20 more. For being Flydigi's first go at an officially licensed Xbox controller, the 5S is pretty good, but with literally just not limiting the software options, it easily could have gone from pretty good to actually great. It was so close. I hope that this video was helpful and useful, and if you've got more questions, comments, more insights than I have, and even criticisms, as long as it's constructive, please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and check out my other controller reviews and content on my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.